Welcome into Bleav in Steelers. My name is Mark Bergin, and Aaron Rodgers Watch is officially on. Recording this on Thursday, April the 17th, and later this afternoon, we're going to get news on the Pat McAfee Show from what he is calling a notable newsmaker. You can see the tweet from McAfee here himself, 1:10 Eastern time. Who could it be on his program? I'd imagine we'll finally have an answer to the Aaron Rodgers saga of, is he joining the Steelers? Is he going to continue to wait in free agency? Potentially, could he retire? I expect us to get news then and there. So stay tuned there again, 1:10 Eastern time on the Pat McAfee Show. We'll see if it's Rodgers. Could be someone else, but I'm trying to figure out who else it could be. And remember, free agency started in March. It's now a full month later, and we're a week away from the 2025 NFL draft. And if not Rodgers, Steelers have to do something at the quarterback position. So we'll keep an eye on that here on Bleav in Steelers as well. We've got great guests lined up before the draft, after the draft. So on Friday, got a big time guest lined up. Stay tuned here on the Bleav in Steelers show and on the Mark Bergin YouTube channel. I want to go through my top 5 running backs and top 5 wide receivers, 2 positions of need for the Steelers. Steelers have Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, but they're likely going to need a running back to help replace the workload now that Najee Harris is a member of the Los Angeles Chargers. So I'm going to go through my top 5 running backs in this year's draft, and to no surprise, number 1 back is Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State. This was a player who is a Heisman finalist, put up like prolific numbers this past college football season to the likes that we haven't really seen since like Barry Sanders was doing his thing at Oklahoma State back in the day. Jeanty is going to be a first-round pick. Where and how high is the question. I could see him with the Raiders as high as the 6th overall pick, but Jeanty is going to be a first-round pick, built like a quintessential running back. You've heard some of the comparisons to, is this the next Bijan Robinson, the next Saquon Barkley? A lot of hype for Jeanty, for a player who just refuses to be tackled on tape. And so I've got him as my top back. Right behind Jeanty, I really, really, really like North Carolina's Omarion Hampton. And Hampton was a player 2 years ago who really benefited from Drake May and Tez Walker in the passing game. 2 years ago, he had 1,500 yards on the ground, 5.9 yards per carry. Well, when Drake May and Tez Walker went to the NFL, Hampton didn't miss a beat. And he didn't miss a beat considering 2 things. Defenses were keying on him because he was the number 1 player to stop on the North Carolina offense, and for the fact that the Tar Heels starting quarterback got hurt in the opening game of the season, season-ending injury. The backup didn't do all that well. North Carolina was down to its 3rd-string quarterback, so teams knew what was coming, and Hampton still put up 1,600 yards on the ground. There's times I don't take a lot in what coaches have to say because they're going to hype up their players for recruiting purposes for the next generation of players that want to play at a program. But Mack Brown, in his 2nd stint at North Carolina, was the head coach before UNC fired him and ended up hiring Bill Belichick. And Mack Brown was saying that Omarion Hampton is as good a player as the North Carolina program has seen in its history. Mack Brown, a legendary coach, won a national championship at Texas, has been around the block a time or two. So I take a lot of stock in what he says when it comes to Hampton. Hampton, 6 foot, 221, a 4.46 in the 40, so not the fastest, doesn't have the greatest long speed. I wouldn't say he's slow either. Had a great broad jump, 10 feet, 10 inches. That's tied for 2nd among the running backs in this year's class. 38-inch vertical as well. This is a do-it-all back as well. Omarion Hampton is number 2. I've got him right behind Jeanty. I wasn't quite crazy enough to put him over Jeanty. I really, really like Omarion Hampton as a prospect in this year's draft out of North Carolina. Again, 5.9 yards rushing, more than 1,600 yards on the ground. He didn't have a ton of help on this year's North Carolina football team. All right, at number 3, I've got TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State, 5'10", 202, a 4-year starter at Ohio State. He's great in pass protection, and he takes care of the football. Get this, 0 fumbles in 667 touches in the last 4 seasons. The knock, would be he runs a little bit upright, but the athleticism is absolutely there. A 4.43 in the 40, a vertical jump of 38.5 inches, a broad jump of 10 feet, 8 inches. So the 40 is in the 85th percentile, the vertical is in the 90th percentile, and the broad jump is in the 93rd percentile. If you look at the same position group, the running back position, in the last 10 combines. Remarkable stuff there. TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State is my number 3 running back. Again, a little bit upright, but a do-it-all guy, and we'll see how that translates into pros. At number 4, I've got Kaleb Johnson, 6'1", 224, a 4.57 in the 40. This is a one-cut downhill runner. He's bigger, again, 224. Pad level can be a little bit high at times, but he's not going to make defenders miss behind the line of scrimmage, but if you can open up holes, he was the beneficiary of a pretty good offensive line over at Iowa. I've got Kaleb Johnson at number 4. And then at number 5, I've got Henderson's Ohio State teammate, Quinshon Judkins, 6 foot, 221, a broad jump of 11 feet. That's first among running backs. And the reason I focus on the broad jump is it shows the amount of explosiveness that a player has, that short burst quickness, which to me is a heck of a lot more important than what a player ends up running in 40-yard dash. 38.5 inch vertical, a 4.48 in the 40. He had a real nose for the end zone too. 50 total touchdowns in 42 games in a 3-year span. 45 of those were rushing touchdowns. Doesn't have the top end speed. Sometimes will get caught from behind, a little bit stiff sometimes, but he's also a really, really good running back. So those are my top 5. And this is a loaded running back class. I didn't even mention Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, DJ Giddens out of Kansas State, Trevor Etienne out of Georgia. He's the brother of Travis Etienne, Cameron Scatabo. There's a lot of really talented running backs in this year's class, but those are who I have for my top 5. Now, let's get through the top 5 receivers as well, because this is another position that Pittsburgh's going to need, because George Pickens is entering the final year of his contract, and other than DK Metcalf, who the Steelers' third receiver is going to be is a huge question mark going into the 2025 season. So let's get into it. Travis Hunter out of Colorado, I fully expect to go with the 2nd overall pick to the Cleveland Browns. I don't think that's any secret. That's the odds-on favorite. A two-way player, something we haven't seen in a long time in the NFL. Travis Hunter, though, he didn't participate in the combine, the Heisman winner. He's just the 8th player ever to be named a consensus first-team All-American and earn any level of academic All-American honors. So this is someone who, is as heralded a prospect as we've had, and I expect big things. And I've got Hunter. To me, it's no secret he's going to the Browns. Now, what the Browns do at the quarterback position beyond that with Flacco and Kenny Pickett and whenever Deshaun Watson will be back still remains a mystery to me. But Travis Hunter, again, I look at the odds markets going to Cleveland with the 2nd overall pick, barring a massive trade. Tetairoa McMillan, T-Mac out of Arizona, 6'4", 219. He's my number 2 receiver. Just an insane catch radius. Now, there's some draft people, some draft experts that think that McMillan is the only receiver 1 in this draft. I want to point out that Hunter and McMillan are the top 2, and then there's a fall off with every other receiving prospect. And it's not that I don't think that the other receivers can be capable starters, but I don't think that you're going to get the stud receivers in what was just a really, really deep class from a year ago. It's not that same caliber when you talk about the high-end talent when it comes to the receiver position. But McMillan, again, the comparison and the shades of that I get is Drake London. That's the comp that I've seen in advance of the draft when it comes to McMillan out of Ohio State. Really good size there. He's my number 2 receiver. At 3, got Matthew Golden out of Texas. He ran the best 40 among the receivers at the combine, a 4.29. This guy can fly, so he has to go to the right team that can utilize that speed and utilize that skill set. Kind of like how we saw a year ago with Xavier Worthy, another Texas kid. And here's the thing, too, with Golden is on tape, the 4.29 isn't as evident as what you see when he's running at the combine. So I didn't see 4.29 on tape, even though he ran that fast on the combine. A little bit of a mystery there of can he play at that speed with the football in his hands, trying to move the ball down the field. But he's my number 3. And like, look, if the NFL doesn't work out for the Texas and the LSU players specifically through these last several years, like, look, the Olympics is coming up in a few years in Los Angeles. I know who we could get on our 4x100 team. This dude can fly. Again, a 4.29 in the 40. That's the 8th best combine result among receivers dating back to at least 2013. At number 4, my guy out of Missouri, Luther Burden, 6 foot, 206, 40-yard dash of 4.41. With all due respect to Cody Schrader of the Los Angeles Rams, Burden was the player where on 3rd down and long, 4th down and long, when Missouri needed to convert the last 2 years and Brady Cook got the ball out of a shotgun, Burden was the player he would go to time and time and time again. The production wasn't quite what we saw from 2 years ago when he really, really burst out. This was a 5-star recruit coming into the NFL, goes to the right team, the right system, a consistent playmaker on the outside. Luther Burden, I think he could play outside. I think he could play in the slot. I think he can move around a bit. And this was just a playmaker for Missouri. I don't think his skill sets were best utilized this past season. I don't know if injuries were part of that, but Luther Burden's a playmaker. And despite some limited production compared to the year before in 2023, I really like him out of Missouri. I've got him at number 4. At number 5, I've got Ohio State's Emeka Egbuka. This is a slot receiver. Now, Egbuka did not participate in the combine. 3-year starter at Ohio State. He holds the team's all-time record for career receptions, had 202 catches at Ohio State. Nuanced route runner. He played in the slot for 73% of his snaps in his college career and just knows how to find the soft spots in coverage. Was also very good in the yak, and that's the yards after catch. Egbuka out of Ohio State is my 5th receiver. So, again, to recap, Travis Hunter out of Colorado, T-Mac out of Ohio State, number 2, Matthew Golden out of Texas, Luther Burden, the 3rd, is my 4th best receiver, and Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. I'll give a special shout out to Isaiah Bond as well, ran a 4.41 in the 40. He ran that after he says he was going to break Xavier Worthy's combine record. That didn't happen, but Isaiah Bond would be like my honorable mention at the receiver position. So we'll keep an eye out on Aaron Rodgers' watch this afternoon on the Pat McAfee Show to see if, in fact, he's the guest, if we finally have a decision now that we're a week out from the NFL draft. If Rodgers does sign with the Steelers, the next question you have to ask yourself is, does Pittsburgh still target a quarterback in next week's draft? And I think the answer would be yes, but I don't think it would be as big of a priority as it is in this moment in time. So keep an eye out on Rodgers' watch this afternoon. We'll keep an eye on that here on Bleav in Steelers. And again, you've got top 5 running backs and receivers. If you missed it, I also ranked my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL draft as well. So keep it here on Bleav in Steelers. We've got a lot to get to. Again, got a guest lined up for Friday. So we'll have a Friday episode here of the show, and then I'll be back next week previewing the NFL draft. And then once we figure out who's going to be on the Steelers for the 2025 season, we'll have recaps of that here on the Bleav in Steelers show. My name is Mark Bergin. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you haven't already, go leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. And please hit that subscribe button on the Mark Bergin YouTube page. Again, my name is Mark Bergin. I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, take care. So long, everybody.